right now. Today we have Becky Saylor. Gonna be really well myself. Becky Saylor from the FPA in Pittsburgh. Also, Dilton. It's a great place for everyone looking for an internship or a job. I've been there the last 2 years, so great place. Just little shove right there. Just one piece of information I want to throw out there. The one thing we're having a finance field trip on Wednesday, November 15th to, Fairfield Asset Management out in Cleveland. So I'm passing around with the sign-in sheet. If you want to put yes or no, if you're interested in that, we're just trying to gauge interest and trying to see how many people are going to be coming with us. So it's on Wednesday, November 15th. It's going to be FMA and FPA both going together, so it should be a good field trip. Other than that, that's really the only piece of housekeeping. Any of you other officers have anything? No? So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Becky Saylor, and she's going to talk a little about the FPA and about her great career journeys. Thank you for coming on.
All right, thanks. First, I'm going to ask you guys some questions. Well, actually, there's only like, you just go around and say your names and I don't know what year you are and what your major is if you have one.
I'm Brady Maxwell, I'm a sophomore, and I'm a finance major.
Jason Petner, I'm a senior finance major.
My name's Tim Hess. I'm a senior finance and accounting major.
Billy Kosmenchenko, junior finance major.
Nick Finley, senior in finance and economics major.
Reese, freshman at finance and business economics. Finance, senior.
Okay.
Rick Hedrick, finance class.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to get an idea. Allegheny didn't actually have a finance major, so you guys are like more ready for real world than I was at this point. But okay, so I have a little PowerPoint. It's not super long because I'm just going to talk a little bit about the CFP. Who's studying for the CFP? Okay. Does anyone plan to study for the CFP? Okay, well, I'll try to convince you. And then I'll talk a little bit about the FPA, what it is, what we do, and then I'll just be more informal and talk about my career, what I did, all of that. So, let's see. So, just an introduction, me, Jason already kind of said some stuff, but I'm Becky Saylor. I am a CFP. I passed my exam last year, so it's relatively new, but got through that. I am the Assistant Director of Financial Planning at Tilton. I'll explain this a little bit more later, but we have, at Tilton, we have a financial planning department that focuses on the planning side of things. So it's less about investments, it's more about tax planning or planning for what's gonna happen when you die. That's insurance and also like wills and having that all put together and retirement planning. So that's my department, I'm more on that side. I'm sure as finance majors, you guys are kind of more into investments and stuff. So hopefully I can teach you more about the planning side of things and you could maybe teach me a little bit about the investment side of things. And then I'm also a board member on the FPA of Pittsburgh Financial Planning Association. We're your parent association. And I'm on the pro bono committee, so I'll talk a little bit about that later. So to become a CFP professional, basically you have to have an education component, which I think you guys can do here. Yeah, so Allegheny didn't have that. A lot of colleges don't. You guys are lucky. I graduated and then I went to Hebron and they put us through an education program, so studying after work. So it's definitely a lot better to be studying while you're still in college than to work a full-time job and then study at night. That was a long process. So then there's the exam. That's the huge exam at the end. It's like 6 hours now. It's on the computer. It was difficult. It took a lot of studying. I don't know. So no one's taken it, right?
I'll take it in November.
You're taking it in November?
Yeah.
Feel like you're ready?
We're about to find out in a month.
I took it back when it was a Tuesday.
And you had your handwritten and yeah.
Did you pass?
Are you still a CFP? So yeah, it's a shorter test now. I can't tell you if it's easier than it used to be, but you know, a lot of my coworkers like to say it's lucky. I don't know. And then you have to have experience. So you have to have 3 years of experience in the financial industry, and internships count. I know someone who was like a bank teller intern, and they used that, and it was fine. And honestly, like I think as long as you give a good case as to why your internship should count, they'll be a little bit lenient. I personally had already been working for 3 years, so it just kind of worked out. And then there's an ethics component. That's a huge part of the CFP because you don't have to be a CFP to be a financial advisor for someone. But as a CFP, you're kind of showing that you have the knowledge to be an advisor and you have kind of higher standards on yourself. So the CFP, I don't know, as you're studying, they have their practice standards, and it's like you have to work in your client's best interests, and you have to just be a good representative of the financial industry. So that's a big part of being a CFP, and it gives you a lot of credibility. So this is kind of playing off of that, but one of the big things they teach is that planning is a process, not a product. So even though you'll go into the real world and they'll call it a sales position, so if you're a financial advisor, oftentimes they'll be like, oh, you're in sales, you're trying to get clients, you're selling something. The CFP likes to push that it's more about creating a relationship with that person and gaining their trust. So just a little bit about how the CFP can help you. So the CFP, I have found, has translated into a more successful practice. A lot of the people in my company who are CFPs tend to find a lot more success as a financial advisor just because sometimes people do recommend, you know, if you get a financial advisor, you should get a CFP because they know that you went to the education part of that. But also just having that background, you feel a lot more confident. You feel like you know a lot more about the planning side of things, and that can be really important. So the CFP and the FPA, they have some statistics. They said that investors are considerably more satisfied with their service from a CFP professional, that more than half of those CFP professionals surveyed said the marks have a significant and considerable impact on client trust. And from a revenue perspective, they say that on average, at least 40% more revenue over the course of their career. So, you know, this is from a survey that they did, but I believe it because there's just so much that goes into being a CFP. So once you have the CFP, so the CFP is an exam, right? You have to study for it, it's an exam. And so you have that knowledge. The one thing that you don't get from just becoming a CFP is how to talk to clients and how to be client facing, how to have really good communication skills, and how to like close on a client, basically like make them become a client. And that's kind of the salesy part of it, but that's the kind of thing that you don't learn by doing the CFP except through your experience in the industry. So when I was doing the CFP, I was going through this college called the College for Financial Planning. And at the end, they had us come up with a plan for a fake client and then present it to our professor, who's someone in Denver, it's online. But I remembered even after that, I was like, wow, that's not a real client, and I still don't feel like I have the confidence to really know what I would say to a client. And it takes practice. I'm not going to say that it took me practice because I'm not a financial advisor. So it would take you practice to get to that point. And I have a lot of friends in my company who, you know, finished the CFP and then went on. They pretty much say this. Okay, so, you know, being a financial advisor is like the #1 career that could come out of being a CFP, but there's a lot of others. I haven't seen paraplanner, like when you look for jobs, I haven't seen that word tossed around a lot, but associate advisor or someone like some companies, there will be a financial advisor and then they'll have their own planner who just does kind of the technical side of things. So one person does the sales and one person does the technical side. So if you have CFP, you might be more inclined to do the technical side. Director of Financial Planning, which isn't my job, but I'm the associate director, so that's kind of the path I took. So back office financial planning expert or an educator, or a business owner, I guess that there's a lot of overlap between, CFP and your own personal situation. All right, so the FPA, hopefully I can explain this well. The FPA is a national organization, so Pittsburgh is just a chapter of the FPA. So every city has its own chapter of the FPA, and they handle things differently, and they do different things, and they have different events and things that you can go to. But if you're a CFP, I highly recommend wherever you end up living, look into your FPA chapter, because you'll make a lot of connections, and that's super important. And it's important for finding a job or if you want to look for another job, but it's also important just to get the experience from other people, get to hear what their experience was. I should have said this in the beginning. If you guys have questions, just interrupt me. I'd rather be a little more informal and answer your guys' questions than like just talking. So just some things you can check out, onefpa.org, that's the national organization. Onefpa.org/Pittsburgh is our Pittsburgh branch. I wouldn't know about Erie, but I really don't.
I don't believe it.
I don't think there's enough in here, I don't know. But Pittsburgh's probably the closest one, maybe Cleveland. Then there's an annual conference, which actually just finished last week. It was in Nashville. It's in a different place every year. So when you're a member, you can go to that. There's local FPA chapter meetings, and we have meetings all the time in Pittsburgh where we have speakers come in, and we, like our forum, I put forum on there because that's Pittsburgh's big event for the FPA is our big forum. Did anyone go to that? Okay.
I think we're gonna try that this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of speakers there, and we have a lot of our membership ends up coming. We have about 300 members, so most of those people end up coming, and that's a huge representation of the financial industry in Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh's not as big as it seems. You'll go to, a couple meetings and realize that you've seen this person, while you were walking through that building, or you've seen them at some other meeting, and everyone knows each other. If you introduce someone to someone else, they'll be like, oh, we know each other. It's just, Pittsburgh's a small city. So there's also a national mentor search. So the FPA National has a mentor program where you can go on and search for someone to be your mentor, and it doesn't have to be someone local. You could be like pals, kind of. And then they also have knowledge circles, which are kind of like planning sections. So they'll have a retirement planning section. And then anyone who's really interested in retirement planning is part of that section, and they have access to like webinars and special events pertaining to that particular section. So all this makes sense. I feel like I'm just going through the class, but so a little plug for the FPA, just that it's really good for professional education. If you do the CFP, you have to do continuing education, so you have to keep getting credits for going to see speakers or doing like little tests or something. You kind of have to keep learning. So the FPA can really help with that, because we put on a lot of events that provide people with continuing education credits. And then advocacy, something that we do that's pretty huge for the Pittsburgh branch. Every year we take a trip we try to get as many members as we can to go to Harrisburg and then to go to DC to advocate for the financial services. So if there's some kind of legislation that's going through and we want to encourage it or we want to stop it, then we want to go there and represent our industry, because we're the ones who understand how it works, not necessarily the legislators. And community, that's important for me at being on the pro bono committee. So we do a lot of volunteer work as pro bono committee. Basically, there's a couple shelters around Pittsburgh, who, if someone goes to that shelter, like a lot of them are women's shelters, but if someone goes there and they need financial help that they can't afford an advisor, they don't have like savings or something, we provide someone from our membership, someone who's a CFP, to just go and talk to them for a couple hours or something, or meet with them a couple times. It's really made a difference for people. And well, for me personally, I'm just really personally invested in it because that's my committee, and I think we'd like to expand to helping more than just the women's shelters around the city, but we're kind of new. Our committee's been around for about 2 years, so we're going to try to expand into, we're looking into helping cancer patients with financial problems, and we're looking into helping veterans. So hopefully that just continues to grow, and when you guys are out there, if anyone's in Pittsburgh, hopefully that's something that you'll want to get involved in. And these are just some resources. You know, if you're new, and I'll have, I mean, you can email this out there if you want. Have this and you can look at the website. The FPA planner search is kind of cool because if you're a CFP, the CFP board has one too, but if you're a CFP, you're kind of listed online so that if someone is searching for a CFP to work with, like, you will show up, and that can be really helpful. So as far as the CFP and FPA, aside from my personal experience, are there any questions still out there about that, or a little confused about what the FPA does?
As far as like the biggest benefits you've seen from really being a part of the FPA, not necessarily just the CFP, but the FPA itself. Can you touch on a few things, like maybe like in your career and also outside of it?
Yeah. Just as a member of the FPA, the networking is huge. So before that, I was just kind of at Heffron, and we're a company of 300 employees. So I only had so many connections in the city, and I didn't grow up in Pittsburgh. So when I became a member, I felt like I was going to events for the FPA, and I was really able to connect with a lot of people from different companies. And you can also see, one big benefit for me is I can see how other companies do what they do. And it's just good to have that perspective, because this was my first job out of college, and it's kind of easy to get stuck thinking this is just the way the industry is everywhere, but it's really good to see a wide perspective. And I love my job, and I'm not looking for another one, but it's still really good for me to see how everyone else does things. But as a board member, just growing kind of professionally in a way, like being a part of a board or being a part of something. I've never been part of a board before. I didn't know how it worked. So seeing how that kind of operates, and kind of even just seeing like the financial side of how we pay for everything and how we decide what this costs and stuff is really interesting. So, yeah.
Do you think being part of the FPA and like being on the board and whatnot has like just given you more confidence in like talking to clients and whatnot?
Yeah, I don't have clients. Sorry. Up front, I don't have clients because I'm more in our management side of things. But I would say being a CFP more than being an FPA member makes me feel confident in what I know, and the fact that I feel like, I'm not overconfident, but I feel like I have a really good working knowledge of the fun technical side of it. So I'd say FPA is more on the social side, networking, and the CFP is like, that was really technical, and I'm glad that I had that knowledge. Especially since I didn't have a finance major in college, I was an economics major. Yeah.
Could you tell us like a little bit more about like your day-to-day activities as a planner, like what kind of like conflicts occur kind of thing?
Yeah, totally. So I'm just going to show you this as an example so you can see like what I do. It's really exciting. It's this book here. So at Heffron Tillotson, every time someone comes to an advisor, the advisor can decide to make this literal like book for them. And it's free for, even if they don't become a client, like it's free. And my department makes this book, and we like put together like this is a list of all their assets. And then we have analyses that tell them where their assets going to go when they die, right? So they have assets up here, and it's going to float all these different places. People, and they're going to pay taxes on it. And then we have education analyses, kind of to determine how much they need to save each year if they want to pay for their kids to go to college, and a insurance analysis. So we kind of say, well, how much are you spending and what kind of debts do you have? And then we try to figure out, okay, if you were to pass away today, what would your spouse need right now to continue living? So we look into, do you need life insurance? Because it's not fun to sell life insurance because people they don't like to hear like you need life insurance, but for some people it's really important to have. And then this book also has a retirement analysis. So the person, we look at what they're saving, and it's just gonna be a bunch of numbers. But we look at what they're saving, what they have, the kind of like money they're gonna have in retirement. So they're gonna have Social Security benefits. And they might have pension benefits that come in when they're retired, but they also might be still paying for an education, which is what these negative numbers are. And then in this case, we're like, your final amount of money is running out when you're 90 years old. And it's not a definite number, like none of this is, we can't tell the future, we don't know. But we want to be able to give people an idea of whether they're on the right track or if they should be saving a lot more.
So it's kind of like a breakdown of everything you spend on, and then you forecast on what you should be spending on pretty much.
Yeah, sometimes we're like, you gotta spend less, or, well, no, a lot of times most retirement analyses don't end up looking like really awesome, although, there's some people who just, get millions of dollars and only spend like $20,000 a year, and they're doing all right, but most of the time we're like, you gotta work on paying down your debt, or you gotta work on, just spending less, or maybe you can't fund your children's education and they're gonna have to take out loans or something. So yeah, we try to work through that. So this book, with all these analyses that we do by hand, and we do them by hand, well, one reason is because the company has kind of always done it that way. But another reason is a lot of people in my department go on to be advisors. And the more of these plans, we make 40 of these a month. So the more of these plans that those planners are doing, the more knowledge they have and the more they understand what's going on underneath everything. And they understand the math behind the whole thing. And so when they go out to be advisors, they're pretty successful when they go through it.
I'm sure the customers are pretty happy when they see that, like the whole thing about them.
Actually, we get a lot of compliments. It's not even the nicest, fanciest looking thing. It's not even on the computer, but we get like so many compliments about it. So my department makes these. So, any other questions about that? So I can talk a little bit about how I got to where I am. It's not going to be as straightforward. Like, you guys become advisors, it's kind of straightforward. I went to Allegheny, wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do, and then took some economics classes, loved that, and kind of wanted to see more of a practical side of it. So a lot of my economics classes were really theoretical. I'm sure you won't know. And that was great, and I felt like I had a good kind of base level knowledge that I could move on to from there. But I got an internship at Tillotson right after I graduated. It was this like 9-month program that I did, and I got to work in their investment advisory team, which they decide for clients who just want to give us their money and say, invest it for me. We have an investment advisory team who invests all that money. And I got to see kind of how they work. And then I got to move into our planning department and see how they work. Our side is more like, are you saving enough, or do you need insurance and stuff like that. And I just kind of connected more with this side of things. It's not for everyone. Like, definitely the investment side is really intriguing also. So after my internship there, just kind of transitioned right into the planning department. I've made 400 of these in my career. And then we have someone who like proofs, like goes through and checks it all. So I've checked about 400 of these. So that was, I'm now past that. Well, as of a few months ago. So my responsibilities now are, we write educational pieces for clients. So we especially like to write things that we can put on social media to kind of like personal interest kind of stuff, like top 10 ways to save retirement or something. I don't know. I have one coming up that I'm going to be like 7 things that Yoda taught us about finance. Hopefully people like that. I don't know. We're doing it for myself, really. We'll see with the movie coming out. So I write a lot of that stuff, and I help out my boss who just oversees our department. We're a department of 12 people now. So we have 5 people making these plans and then 4 people checking them, and then that's pretty much how our department works. There are companies though that I've seen, they'll have an advisor and then they have their own planner who does like stuff like this for them or runs analyses for them. And I haven't seen actually that many companies that have their own designated financial planning department. So it's interesting. That's why it was interesting for me to see like other companies and how they do things. Yeah.
Why did you switch from the investment advisory side over to that?
It just wasn't, I don't know how to say it. It didn't feel fun to me. When I was doing this, I felt like I was having fun and I enjoyed learning about this. Honestly, there was a point in college where I wanted to be an actuary, and I was like, I should be an actuary. And then at some point I was like, I don't think I'm gonna have fun. I think it was when my brother was like, oh, so you're just gonna tell people when they're gonna die. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's what you do. That's what actuaries do. And I think it was my internship with Hebron that really moved me more towards like personal finance. And yeah, I don't know, I was lucky enough to be able to intern in both areas, and I could just see that my passion was more towards this side of things. I like the analyses on this side because I feel nothing's definite. We can't tell the future on either side of things, really. You know, we can't choose the perfect investment. You can't tell people that they're definitely going to retire with a lot of money. I just think the stats on this side of things are more personal to like the person, and that's more as opposed to stats that tell you about an investment.
So going back to like college time and like where around that, what were some of like the biggest things you did maybe during your senior year or your junior year really prepared you for kind of that next step?
Internships were huge. I interned at Erie Insurance for a few years. Not as an actuary, I was just an intern, but even just getting a professional experience, seeing what it was going to be like working a 9 to 5, see if that's what I want to do, because a lot of these jobs are 9 to 5 or potentially more if you're an accountant. But yeah, like getting that experience of like, all right, I'm going to go to work every day at 9 to 5, and I better make sure I really like it because it's going to get monotonous regardless. So I have to make sure that I really enjoy it. So internships were huge, and talking with your professors, definitely love for professors. Just talk, I mean, like they have a lot of connections, and they, you know, they probably know people who've been out there, who've done that. At Allegheny, we had an economics can't remember what they called him. He was in the economics department, and he wasn't a professor, but he had owned a business. So, a successful business. So it was really useful to have him around and just kind of talk about, a lot of people were in entrepreneurship classes and stuff, so it was really useful to have him around and kind of work through that and see what his experience was. So talk to people who are smarter than you and recognize that they're smarter than you. There's a lot of people who are still way smarter than me, and I want to soak in as much as they can. So,
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, moving forward in your career?
So I think at Hefferton, so I'm in a position where my boss is 36 years old. But I think he wants to move further into like higher management, like C-level management. And I hope in the next 5 to 8 years that I would be moving up into like his position. Maybe being more of a manager than I am right now. So that would be great because I'd still have to have the technical knowledge for planning. Because as director of financial planning, people ask you, our advisors ask us questions all the time. We're constantly answering research questions. And that's what we're there for. We're there to give them advice on planning and how to talk to their clients about planning topics. Because there are, I mean, and this is not a criticism, there's a lot of advisors out there who are just really good at smooth talking people. And they're really good at just getting people to come in the door, and we need those people, but they need to have a support system behind them, and they really sell the support system. Because we do have an investment group, and we do have a planning group, and they can sell that to their clients and say, you know, we have all these smart people behind us, and I have access to those people all the time. So my job, if I were to move up, would be more really supporting them, maybe sitting in on some of their client meetings, and then managing people. See what exciting. I'll get to read a bunch of management books, and again, learn from people.
Good.
Can answer.
Good. I was just recently,
A year ago. Well, last March.
how much time did you spend studying?
So the education program I did was you had 5 tests before you took the real test. So each test was, first was insurance, and then investment planning, tax planning, retirement planning, and estate planning. And that process took me 2 years. And I was studying, I'm not gonna say I didn't procrastinate
So that's kind of where
but
these students will be when they get their certificate and all that stuff. But then going from there to
the exam?
CFP exam. I don't remember.
I
know
studied
it
a
was
lot.
I know I said if I didn't pass, I'd never do it again.
Yeah.
They asked me how long, I'm like, I don't remember.
Yeah, no, I studied a lot. Well, there was a lot of pressure on me because in my department, everyone takes the CFP exam, and no one in the past 10 years had failed it. So it's just like,
Oh,
you
wow.
can't fail it. Because we make these all the time, and these literally, like, it's like the CFP. It was, if there was a day that I didn't, so I had 3 months to study for the actual exam. Like, I told myself I was taking it in March, and I started studying right after Christmas. So there was a day I didn't study, I definitely felt guilty about it. There was a lot of studying, like at least an hour or 2 a day, and then I would try to study as much as I could on the weekends. And I told my family, I was like, you won't see me for 3 months. We're just not, you know, we're not gonna hang out, we're not gonna do much, because I just have to pass this.
Did you take a review course
The College for Financial Planning gives you review books. So you have review books that you can read through, and they have online professors that you can listen to. I would only listen to them if there was something I really didn't understand. But that was really helpful. And I had a huge question bank of like 1,000 questions I could just go through constantly doing practice questions. That was huge. Constant practice questions. So yeah, putting the time in up front was really good though, because when I was doing those first 5 tests, as long as I actually worked really hard to know what I was doing when I took those first 5, carried over into my study for the actual exams. Put the time in up front. Yeah.
What would you say was the hardest part that you took?
Estate.
Estate? Okay.
I didn't get it at all. I mean, I had been making these plans for probably a year before I did estate planning, and when I finally did the studying for that, I couldn't believe how much I didn't know what I was doing when I was doing it. And how much I was relying on people above me to fix my problems. I had no idea what estate planning was when I got into it. That was probably the hardest. The easiest was probably the investment planning one because it's the most crossover for college. It's like supply and demand. So that was probably the easiest. Why is anyone studying estate planning right now? Or I guess you're studying everything, right?
Right. Estate planning is the worst. Just you said about actuary stuff. It's all about that.
Yeah, that's true.
Think about it.
Talk about it in class all the time.
That's awesome though. I loved Allegheny. I'm glad I went, but it was not that specific. It didn't go into CFP material, and that was all stuff I just had to learn after college. So you guys are really, this is a great program. And I mean, to have the CFP, you can miles ahead of where I was. It took me 3 years after getting into the real world before I had my CFP. So it was huge.
So going back, looking at your first couple years in your career, is there anything that you would do differently, or looking back at yourself as a senior or junior? Is there anything you'd say I should have done this?
I know there's a lot. I probably would have once I got my internship, which I think the internship that I did after college, I did my internship after college. So once I got my internship with Heffron, I just stopped looking into anything else. And I'm lucky that I really like Heffron, and that's great. But I wish I'd kind of looked around and seen what else I, might have been interested in, or what I would have, wanted to do. I was someone that went to college and didn't know what they were going to do when they got out, and I wish I had done more research. I also wish I'd taken my senior year a little bit more serious. I took 2 pass-fail classes, and I had some extra credits from prior years, so I just only took, I took less credits my senior year than I normally would be. I'm glad that I enjoyed it with my friends, but I probably could have balanced it. So I'm not saying you guys shouldn't enjoy you should have as much fun as you can your senior year. When you get out in the real world, you're just not gonna have that fun anymore. It's still gonna be kind of fun, but it's gonna be let's go to happy hour after work instead of let's go to karaoke. But
gotta have some fun.
Karaoke was big in Meadville, so that was the thing we did. And I do, I kind of wish I had kept in contact with my professors, to be honest. I have a lot of friends from Allegheny who are I still talk to my professor, and honestly, I dropped the ball on that, and it probably would have been helpful to have those connections. Another plug for They're smart. They're smarter than you. I think I've seen people, leave college and get into their job and really think that they know. And it can only hurt you because you're not going to learn from the people around you, which is huge, and you're not going to build up a sense of just being humble about where you are because you don't have as much experience as the person next to you. So that's a big piece of advice. I've seen a lot of people really struggle if they come out thinking that they just know everything, even if you have your certificate.
So your internship at Erie,
Yeah.
what did you do?
I was a business, oh my gosh, what was it called? Oh, a business analyst in their IT department. So I wasn't doing IT. I was just kind of communicating between what the company wants and then communicating that to the developers and trying to see if we can figure out how, because computer programmers are going to be really technical and they're going to talk technical language. And then the company's like, I just want something that does this. So I had to kind of be the go-between between what the developers can do and what it wasn't anything technically that related to what I ended up doing, but it was a really valuable experience. And I still have connections from your interns, which is nice. Just to, you never know when you're going to need those connections. So.
Would you say that you like Pittsburgh? Or just kind of curious about that.
In the summer, I really miss Erie a lot. In the winter, I really don't. So, 'cause I really miss the peninsula. There's rivers, but they're not like as pretty. People at Erie think that they go through rush hour traffic, and they really don't. So I really miss that. Also, Pittsburgh's it's a lot bigger than Erie. Like in Erie, I knew everything. I knew where everything was. I know how to get around everywhere. In Pittsburgh, I still get lost. So I think I miss the small town feeling of it, but Pittsburgh's also exciting. It's exciting for younger people. Maybe, that might be funny for some people because Pittsburgh's still a little older than a lot of cities, but there's a lot going on compared to Erie. Why does anyone here prefer Erie over Pittsburgh? Yeah. Just because it's so busy, or just?
I've lived here like my whole life, so I don't know. I can't say. I'm a little biased for now.
Yeah, I grew up in Erie, but my dad lived in Pittsburgh, so all the time I was going to Pittsburgh, so I really got to do something like this. Yeah, Erie's great, and if you get a job here, that's awesome, but it's probably more slim pickings than Pittsburgh. It's just an unfortunate fact. But, any other questions I can answer?
So would you say, like, coming into, for all of us, being involved in the FPA,
Yeah.
would you say that, like, there's anything that you would suggest us take advantage of specifically with the all members as a part of the FPA right now, as not graduated yet?
As the student chapter.
As the student chapter, like all the resources, there's something you'd say specifically, like, focus on this, because they're all about most.
I think the most important thing is just, and I say this knowing that I'm partially responsible for this, but like, just getting down there and like, you have this connection with a bunch of people who are have been doing this for years, like way more years than I've been doing this. And some people are, analysts who are doing more of the investment side of things, and some of them are advisors who are meeting with clients. And I just think like going to the forum is a really good idea, and going to some of our meetings when you can. I know, like, first of all, you're only here for 9 months, but because for me, the biggest part of the FPA for me was the networking. I think as a student, that's huge, especially when you're looking for jobs. You want to make connections. Saying that you're in the FPA club here is gonna help you out. Like, if you put that on your resume, like, definitely do that, because they'll like to see that initiative. Every CFP professional knows about the FPA. They pride themselves on being the connection for CFP professionals. Does that answer it?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I was trying to get some interest for the forum, trying to tell everybody.
That's everything. We just did the hang
Oh, it was awesome when we went. Yeah.
It's part of the
Yeah. You guys went when it was at the casino, is that right?
Yeah, we went last year. It was at the hotel, the Hill we made.
South Hill.
Yeah.
Okay. That is there this year.
Is it?
When's it at the casino?
That must have been 2 years ago. Was anyone here when Steph came to talk to you guys? Okay, just you. Yeah, when she was president, it was at the
Oh.
It's just kind of funny. But, yeah, I don't know. Some people really didn't like that venue because there was a lot of like smoke and I don't think it worked out as well.
They try to teach you like being financially conservative whenever you stock around. It
Yeah, like, yeah,
It was
total.
but
It was a little like,
it was a test. It was just a test.
can you stay at the forum?
The CFP ethics committee was there waiting in the back.
So, yeah, we can talk about you guys coming to the forum. I mean, I know the board has always been happy about you guys coming whenever you guys.
It's always good. Anybody have any other questions? Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.